Hey there, sinners. It's Adam Nox, and welcome to another episode of the Cult of You. And isn't the world we're in today quite disconcerting in many areas? There's war between Russia and the Ukraine. There's variants coming out from COVID. There's stock market changes and things out there that's just very unpredictable. In the search for meaning, these are the two strongest drives for us, oftentimes as human beings, the very need for certainty and the need for uncertainty. These drive a lot of our impulses. But in such trying times, trying to create any kind of prediction is oftentimes quite difficult. That's why people of old days turned to astrologers, and so do many people today still. The impact of the planets on our own planet is visible, even if we simply look at the effects of the moon on the cycle of our woman and the cycles of our waves in the ocean. As such, let's turn to the astrologer, Bill Duvendack, to give us some comfort, some guidance of what are some of the predictable patterns coming forward for the month of March and what they mean. Let's look at the equinoxes, the new moon, the full moon. This is quite a big month astrologically. So without any further ado, sit back, relax, and remember to live deliciously.
Hi everyone, Bill Duvendack here with another monthly astrological preview video coming out through the Cult of You. Thank you to the Cult of You and Adam Nox. We are now celebrating 1 year of doing this, and there's a lot of projects in store for the upcoming year, so make sure that you're paying attention and you're ready to go. We find ourselves at the beginning of March, and even though March 1st is the start of the calendar month, you may find that things don't pop off until March 2nd, which is the new moon in Pisces. Now, this new moon is going to be quite profound. We have the sun, the moon, Neptune, and Jupiter all in Pisces, and the reason this is interesting is because Neptune and Jupiter are the two ruling planets of Pisces. It's been quite a while since they've been in there together, and the energy in the air, the emphasis is on increased spirituality, new spiritual beginnings, resolution to spiritual conflicts. This is also a time of strong emotions, though. Pisces is known as a very sensitive sign, and in this case, it means being sensitive to energy that is out there. So you might find that your buttons are pushed easier than they are at other times. You may also find that things that don't normally bother you do bother you around the time of this new moon. So whenever appropriate, make sure that you have a thicker skin. Pisces is also the energy of escapism, though. So you might have a tendency to mentally or physically move back into your comfort zone and hide away from the world. And while that might be okay in small doses, it's not a way to live your life. So be careful with that. Yes, everybody needs a break every now and then, but making that break your new state of being would not necessarily be good. Pisces is also the most psychic sign in the zodiac, so you might find your ability to sense and interact with spirits is stronger than normal. And your intuition might be on point now more than ever. The first part of March starts off with a heavy emphasis on Capricorn still, with Venus and Mars and Pluto there. This has been going on a while, but it's coming to a close. So for those of you that have heavy Capricorn in your chart, any opportunities that you have been dragging your feet on, now is the time to maximize them. Any sort of relationships in the workplace that you have been massaging and bringing into being, now is the time to act on them. Later on this month, Mars and Venus will be moving into Aquarius, so those professional opportunities will not necessarily be there. As many of you know, we also have the equinox coming up on March 20th. I realize I'm skipping ahead a little bit here, but I want to say something about this early on and come back to it later, because in the northern hemisphere of the planet, this equinox is spring equinox, and in the southern hemisphere, it's autumn. Regardless of where you are, it is a time of profound balancing. It is a time of bringing things into alignment, not just within yourself, but also within context of the greater world. And a lot of this begins to change on March 6th when Mercury enters into Pisces, setting the stage for Venus and Mars to move into Aquarius later. Those three signs, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces, are the last quadrant in the zodiacal wheel. And the reason this matters is because it's telling us that the energy in the air right now, astrologically speaking, is that of closure, bringing things to an end, ending one cycle to lay the groundwork for another. So embrace it. A lot of times people have problems letting go of things, but the energy in the air now is saying you can do it. Capricorn is the sign of the occupation, the career, and the profession. Aquarius is the energy of groups, organizations, humanitarian endeavors. And then, of course, Pisces, we just got done talking about extensively. So right now, it's the time to reach out and take hold of the direction that you want to go in life, but it's also the time to get together with friends. It's the time to engage yourself in humanitarian causes, and it is the time to bring your spirituality into those same life areas. With everything that's going on in the world right now, especially the imperialistic invasion of Russian forces into the Ukraine, we can see that there are a lot of causes that need our support. No person is an island. So the more that we remember that, and the more that we extend a hand to help others, we are overall lifting the evolution of the species as a whole. I find this time of year very interesting every year, not just because I'm a Pisces, but also because it's a very fluid time. Let's face facts. Regardless of where you are on the planet, this is still the early part of the calendar year. So what we are seeing now are seeds being planted that will come to fruition in about 6 months at the time of the next equinox. Now, of course, things will play out before then, but I mention this here because it draws our attention to our own potency. It draws our attention to the idea that we can plant seeds now and harvest them later as long as we nurture them along the way. There's a full moon coming up on March 17th. Many people and many places celebrate that day as St. Patrick's Day. So you might find this year it's a little more eventful than in years past. You may find that people are a little bit more over the top or a little bit edgier as the day progresses, and this includes the days leading up to it. So if you celebrate St. Patrick's Day, you might want to be careful to be careful. In other words, be mindful of that full moon. not everybody might be on the same page with celebrating it. And if you get caught off guard, it might work to your detriment. I'm going to back up here for a second because I did forget something important. March 8th is International Women's Day. So a big shout out to all the ladies out there. You know, when I lived in the States up until I moved to Europe a few years ago, it really wasn't that big of a deal. I mean, people knew about it and some people celebrated it, but living overseas, I discovered more and more people celebrate it than I knew of in the US. So I'm drawing attention to this because I believe it should be celebrated by everyone. That's just the way it is. So happy International Women's Day, ladies. And now back to our regularly scheduled forecast. After the 17th, we have a few days to go until the equinox on the 20th. This equinox is going to have a lot of emphasis on Aquarius and Pisces, and of course, it's the sun moving into Aries, where it will soon conjunct Chiron. So we see the Capricorn influence start to fade by the 20th, and now things are moving into a more humanitarian direction. They are moving more into a space of how can we help each other. This is very profound with a lot of the unrest that is occurring. And I mentioned it before, but I'm going to come back to it again because I'm not sure if everyone is ready to step up and work and integrate with others. The last few years has been a period of divisiveness, and with this emphasis in Aquarius and Pisces, it is a beginning step to ending that division if we all do it in mass, and that's the key. We all have to do this together. So once equinox gets here on the 20th, it is the new year from an astrological perspective. And it's a good time to take the initiative, reaching out, building bridges when possible. Shortly after equinox, on March 23rd, we have the quarter moon. This will be highlighting spiritual and emotional challenges. So let's connect some dots here. Just a few minutes ago, I said that the new moon in Pisces on March 2nd is all about spiritual resolution, spiritual situations being resolved between us. And now here we are just a few weeks later, and we have the quarter moon, which might irritate some spiritual issues that we have within ourselves. So the easy way to put these two together is that in early March, we get a chance to bring all this in alignment within ourselves. And then later in March, around the 23rd, we're going to get tested by Spirit to see if we can apply what it is that we say we learned earlier in the month. Or perhaps we got the answers that we wanted earlier in the month, and now on the 23rd, it's time to fine-tune those plans. Maybe troubleshoot some things that we didn't know about earlier in the month. Maybe make some minor adjustments that have become obvious to us. But then when you connect the dots, it's basically saying for those 3 weeks in March, it's going to be a time of spiritual focus. It's going to be a time to look within and see how our external life can mirror what is happening without. It is also a good time to be unabashedly honest with ourselves. Sometimes we have spiritual beliefs and we don't live them out, and when that occurs, we have to ask ourselves what needs to change, our behavior or the spiritual beliefs. And sometimes it's a little bit of both. Many times it's not, but sometimes it is. By aligning our spirituality with our physical life and vice versa, we find that we come into a greater space of accomplishment, a greater space of joy and happiness, and we are in a better position to help those around us and improve the world at large by simply being better versions of ourselves. Now, the Aquarius influence resurges March 28th, but it's short lived. So by the time that the end of March gets here, we see that a lot of the emphasis has now shifted to Pisces and Aries with just a tail bit of Aquarius influence, much like the beginning of the month was Pisces and Aquarius with tail end of Capricorn influence. Now we shift that assign as March begins to wrap up. The very interesting thing about this year is that we've got Chiron in Aries. Chiron is the planet of the wound, but also the planet of the wounded healer. And when it's in Aries, these wounds have to do with a wounded sense of self or a wounded sense of being. Now, Chiron is in Aries the entirety of the month. The good news is, with the shift from Capricorn energy to Aquarius energy around the 6th, we find ourselves in a better position to heal our own internal wounds. And a lot of those will have to do with self-confidence. A lot of those will have to do with knowing who we are, applying our willpower in various directions. And a lot of this healing will have to do with making choices that are best for us, regardless of what others think. Now, having said that, it does not mean being a jerk to other people. It just means we focus on ourselves so that we can then better the lives of those around us. So bringing it back full circle to the end of the month, by the time that approximately March 28th gets here, we find that those wounds, whether healed or not, are going to be thrust into the spotlight. So you may find that during the early part of the month, the healing journey is no problem. But then as the end of the month gets here, you might find that some wounds you thought healed are thrown back in your face to address, or you may find that the healing work you did earlier in the month sets the stage for a lot of positive opportunities that come your way as April begins to unfold. So, of course, if you reverse engineer this idea, it means if you know what your wounds are and you're not doing anything about them, you're about to have a real rough month, because the beginning of the month starts off with bringing these wounds and the healing process to our awareness. And at the end of the month, it's a litmus test from spirit. So if you don't address these things early in the month, it's going to be proven to you at the end of the month what these issues are. And it's going to be unabashedly clear what you have to do with them. Another piece of good news for the entire month is that all the significant planets in astrology continue to be direct. I talked about this last month, and it bears repeating here, because it means this is still the month for forward momentum and forward progress. Yes, there is the situation of the wounds and the healing that I have been mentioning. But this is not a time to be reactive. This is a time to be proactive. This is a time to know thyself, as the ancient temple says. This is a time to say, okay, I know who I am, I know where I'm going, I know what I'm doing, and I'm not going to stop until I get there. This is a good time to say, okay, the plans are in place, and once equinox gets here, it's full steam ahead. Even though that may seem like a very important point and time as it pertains to willpower, we should also stay humble as well. We may think we know what's going on within us, but the entirety of March will bring it to our awareness what needs to be done and whether or not we're right with that assessment. And if we're wrong with that assessment, then we have to be humble enough to say, oops, I screwed up. I didn't realize that. It's on me. I need to fix me. That level of humility can be so flippin' valuable when it comes to personal healing. And I don't see enough people being humble out there. You may think you know what's going on, only to discover later that you were wrong. So it's better to be humble and admit that you're doing the best you can with the tools you've got. But as new information comes along, it would be wise to incorporate it in your healing journey. So even though it's not a major player until the end of the month, Chiron in Aries is going to be dancing in the background, bringing our attention to what is happening internally and externally. And at the end of the month, it's going to be testing us. It's going to be a time where we can see if we actually know what's going on within us. It's going to be a time to see if we can actually apply what we have learned to our everyday situation and our overall direction in life. So then we can also extrapolate this to say that if March stuff starts off and you're just doing your thing and most of what I said is not even on your radar, don't worry, it'll be on your radar by the end of the month. So for those of you that read messages from Spirit on a daily basis, I would encourage you to pay attention to those signs. To those of you that don't do that, you might want to start that practice, because by the end of the month, not only will you be tested on how far you've come with your assessment of your wounds and your ability to heal, you might also find that it's time to change tactics with regards to finding the necessary information you need to move to the next level. So yes, this video is a little bit shorter this month, but given the direct motion of the planets, the emphasis on the fourth quadrant, and everything that we've been talking about, you can see that this is, like it is every year, a very transitional month. But the transition in this case is from one of isolationism into one of group interactions. Now is the time to shift from doing what is best for you to doing what is best for everyone, but not losing your ability to do what's best for you. I find this very profound because this is going to be the first time, as I said before, in a long time that Jupiter, Neptune, and the Sun will be moving through Pisces. Pisces is the sign of the visionary. Pisces is the sign of the cutting edge. And I can tell you from being a Pisces, many times it's a lonely road, because those people with strong Pisces in their chart generally have ideas that are ahead of their times, and the masses don't have the courage or the integrity or the intelligence to grasp the ideas that Pisces share. So for those of you out there that are Pisces or have strong Pisces in your chart and you're feeling frustrated because people aren't keeping up with your ideas, hate to break it to you, but that's part of the cross we bear in this life. And it doesn't get any less frustrating the older that you get. For those of you that don't have strong Pisces in your chart, listen to the Pisces. They're generally the ones that are out there on the cutting edge. Pisces and Aquarius both share the energy of being very visionary and very, very progressive. Both of those signs are seen as being ahead of the bell-shaped curve. Both of those signs have ideas that many would consider revolutionary, but in a lot of ways, this is also the two-sign combination that can guide us into a much brighter, better put together future. The difference between the two is that Pisces has an intuitive guidance for visionary ideas, and they focus on the emotional and the spiritual. But since Aquarius is an air sign, they have visionary ideas too, but they can give you the step-by-step practical application of those ideas. Whereas Pisces, they'll tell you the ideas, they'll tell you how it'll work or what effect it will produce, but they may not be able to tell you each step to get there. And that's where the Aquarian energy comes in. They'll be able to tell you each step in making it happen and even break it down to making it happen. So if you have a heavy Aquarius in your chart, you do share that idea with Pisces in that you probably have ideas that are ahead of their times. And that could lead to frustration, but you're not dealing with it alone. Pisces has Aries to lean on, or Aquarius to lean on. Aquarius has Pisces to lean on. And hopefully the other 10 signs in the zodiac catch up. Did I get a little risque there? Listen to your Aquarian friends. Listen to your Piscean friends. Their ideas may seem revolutionary, and even if they're wrong with what they state, the essence of what they say and what they state is still on point. And now, more than ever, with everything going on in the planet, the only thing we know for sure is that long-standing institutions and social structures need changed drastically and changed quickly. So there you have it, the month preview for March 2022. I want to take a few moments to push a little bit of a personal agenda here, and that is to simply say I and millions of others in the Western world stand with the Ukraine. So if you are in the Ukraine listening to this, I don't want to say our thoughts and prayers are with you. I want to say it's more than that. I know plenty of people that are talking about doing ritual work to support the freedom fighters in the Ukraine. I know I have seen articles online of many people actually flying over and lending their support physically to the Ukraine. So you're not isolated. You're not alone in dealing with this imperialistic war of aggression that serves no goddamn purpose. If you're a Russian and you're listening to this and you do not agree with the direction of your government, keep up the protests, keep fighting. As you can tell, people support you too. Anyway, that's about it. The monthly horoscopes are available on the website, 418ascendant.com. Daily horoscopes are continuing to go out on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. I hope all of this finds you well, and until we chat again, may we all receive blessings of good health, prosperity, and success as we move forward in this next wonderful month of our lives, and happy equinox to all.
I've always felt a little different, a little uneasy between regular folk, a bit of a dreamer, a lost cause, a little non-ordinary, some would say. I think I've always just been this way. My mother said I was special, my father thought I should be feared. But I knew that witchcraft coursed through my veins the first time I tasted the lips of the goddess inside the rain. Yes, I'm a witch, it's true. And sure, we are the ones who believe in the beauty of nature, who believe in the things science, absent of art, cannot explain, who instead of religion would have romance. And sure, you may think we have lost our way, when in the world of predictable things we have such unfamiliar things that we would like to say. But maybe, in a world so cold and alone, a little unfamiliar is exactly what is needed to show us the way home.